everyone. My name is Tina Lombard, and you're watching Joy in Our Town. With us today, we have Heather Lafferty. She is the president of Habitat for Humanity here in the Metro Denver area. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Tina.
Now, Denver has a very growing, very fast populated, the area is growing by leaps and bounds, and there's a lot of families that are coming to the area, but the number of housing units available is not keeping up the pace, especially for those families in need that may be in financial, more financial needs. So Habitat for Humanity. Heather, tell us a little bit about Habitat.
Habitat for Humanity is an organization that is focused on bringing people together, engaging the community to build and preserve affordable housing. We do this working alongside the families who will buy their Habitat home. They help to build it alongside their neighbors, volunteers from across the community, people who really believe that having a good home is the basis for everything in terms of success, and want to ensure that more families, more children have a good place to call home.
Beautiful. Now, what is it that you do? What is your role there?
I am the CEO with Habitat for Humanity here in the Metro Denver area, which means that I get to be involved with everything that we do locally. We've got an incredible staff, as well as we work with about 15,000 volunteers locally each year to serve more than 120 families, both locally and through our outreach efforts.
That is beautiful. So Habitat for Humanity is not just here in Colorado, it is nationwide.
That's right.
And it's been around for how many years?
So we are a global organization, and we've been working globally for 40 years. Here in Colorado, we've had a great presence. The Habitat Metro Denver affiliate is one of the oldest affiliates in the United States.
Yeah, wonderful.
And there are hundreds of families who are able to fall asleep every night here in a good Habitat home.
So let's talk a little bit more about what you do. You are a Christian-based organization.
We are. We are founded on Christian principles and the idea that everybody deserves a good place to call home.
Absolutely. Now, I do mortgages, okay, and I lend money to people and they go buy a home. So now Habitat for Humanity is different. Tell us what you do in contrast.
Well, we're similar in that we are a lender, but we are also the developer and the builder. And so that's the unique combination of Habitat. We go out, we identify land, we design our homes, and then we build them. Once the homes are complete and families have finished their sweat equity hours, then we become the lender. We've raised all of the capital up front through our generous donors in the community, so that then we can provide families with an affordable mortgage. And that is really important. We do see historic low rates on mortgages today, but for families in the income levels that we serve, they still would be required to pay 6 or 7% interest in the traditional market. We're being able to provide them with something that is affordable, that can be sustainable for families, and that allow them to also enjoy the benefits of owning a home.
Right. So in other words, you actually not only lend, you actually identify the property, build the property alongside with the family.
That's right.
So they put their sweat equity into it, and then when everything is said and done, then you provide the financing.
That's right.
And the blessing is the financing a little bit less? Is the cost of housing? Why Habitat for Humanity? Why would they come to you? Who needs this?
It's a great question, Tina. We are able to provide a very affordable product. The average or median home price, new home price in the Metro Denver area right now is just about $400,000. Habitat's homes are about $200,000 for a new home. So we're talking about half the price of what you would get on the market. And then the second piece is that we are providing a no-profit affordable mortgage, which means that families are truly able to afford their home, which means they're able to stay in their home. They're able to do the things that allow them to be a successful homeowner. And for many families who work with us, they don't have another option. The traditional market would not lend to them because perhaps of their credit rating or their income levels, they might be seen as higher risk. At Habitat, that's who we serve. We know that families of all income levels can be successful as homeowners. We have a less than 2% foreclosure rate, which shows that when families are prepared and they have a desire to be a successful homeowner, it's not a problem.
See, that's it. So people, let's say somebody's got a job and they've got a very good job and their spouse has got a very good job, but because they're in Denver, the housing market is so much more costlier.
It is.
And so even though they got good credit and they have got good jobs, their income level could not substantiate to buy a house of average price in that area. And this is where you step in.
That's right.
Okay.
When you look at the housing price increases over the last 10 years, they've increased about 90%. If you look at the income increases over the same time period, incomes have only increased about 27%. And so when you've got housing prices but incomes, you have an unsustainable model for too many families.
No, it's ridiculous. So what happens if somebody, let's say there was no Habitat for Humanity, there was no help, and a family's living, and the wife is working, the husband's working, they've got 3 kids, but together collectively they make about $60,000 a year, and they have to buy a home in this area where the mortgages are right around $1,800 to $2,000 a month. What happens to them if they can't buy a house and there's nobody like you in between?
They'll stay in a rental situation, which puts a
what's wrong
roof
with that?
over their head.
Yeah.
It can be a safe place, but it's not as stable. Their rents can rise, and right now we're seeing families whose rents are going up $300-400 a month. When you're talking about a family living at $60,000 annually, or even far less, a rent increase of $300 or $400 a month, that's not sustainable.
It's not.
And so for families who are looking for that kind of stability, they want to be able to own a home. We know that children growing up in a Habitat home are twice as likely to go to college as their peers. Their families have worked very hard for their home, and they have that stability. They're not going to be forced out. They're not going to have to move if the rent rises. This is their home. This is their neighborhood and their community. And that means a lot to really providing a sound foundation for children to grow and thrive.
So now what is the problem of having families in the area that cannot afford homes?
Yeah, and we're seeing that so much more today in Denver for the very reason that house prices are going up. There is not enough supply to meet the demand in our community. And so what's happening are families are being forced out of our community. People are moving further out into areas that are less expensive, and in some cases even leaving the state.
Even leaving,
Or they're relying more on public assistance to be able to afford their home. And for many families, that is a good tool. But for so many families who've never had housing instability in their lives, this is a new space for them, and it's not one that they are excited about being in. Which is why Habitat becomes such an important solution.
Well, it's really nice because you actually look at the family and you look at them overall, and you try to get them to a house. So let's just talk about some of the solutions now.
Yeah.
Let's say that they approach you and they actually go through an application.
That's right.
And then they go to an orientation. And then what happens if they go through your program?
Once they are qualified for a Habitat mortgage, which is the first step, and they've been identified for a property, a home that we're building or renovating, then they begin a lot of hard work. Each homeowner is required to do 200 hours of sweat equity. And so when you think about that, if you are working full-time, if you've got kids at home, you're already very busy. So to make that commitment to say, this is so important to me and to my children that I am willing to do this hard work, says so much about the people that we're working with. Families are going out, they're helping to build their own home, they're working on their neighbors' homes, they're working in a Habitat restore, and they're taking homebuyer education classes. So they come in after a long day of work at night, and they come in and they sit for 2 hours and take classes. Everything from being prepared financially to how do you, fix a hole in your drywall, or how do you unplug, have a toilet problem and fix it yourself.
So you basically, so if I don't know how to build a house or anything, you don't just say, hey, go over there, here's a chart. You actually, they have support, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you have a lot of sponsors that come in, you've got people at banks that come in, lenders, you've got just people, church people come in and help, am I correct?
You're absolutely right, Tina.
So give me a typical day if I were to go, I'm putting sweat equity in, and I'm going to help build my house. Who's there and what's the typical day?
That's a great question. We definitely do not need people to be, carpenters, if you will, to figure out how to build their home. We work with people who have, who come and say, I have no skills, and yet at the end of the day, they have figured out, because of Habitat's leadership and the tools and the training that we provide, how to drywall, how to paint, how to raise the walls on their home. And so each day, if you look at building a home, it seems complicated, and yet each day there's a task, and whatever that task is, we have staff on site who train and teach.
So you're not by yourself, you actually have construction. I mean, there's people there building the house.
You absolutely do.
It's not just you and a hammer and a nail.
Exactly. Exactly. There'll
Okay.
be, our families are out working side by side with volunteers from our sponsors, as you mentioned, as well as people in the community who just want to be a part of doing something like this. And our staff trains the teams each day to be able to do whatever that project is. And over the course of about 3 months, that home gets built.
So it gets built, and so now this is when the financing comes in. Then the loan takes over, and you're saying that the houses are being priced at an affordable level where they can actually
That's
get
right.
in. So they take over financing.
That's right. And so they actually will then, we will be the lender. And so they will buy the home from Habitat. We are the lender. We ensure that the mortgage is affordable. They then make their mortgage payments back to Habitat. We recycle those mortgage payments back into our program, which allows us to build more homes every year.
That is wonderful.
Which means, so when a donor makes an initial donation into our program, it allows, you know, this family to get a home, and then that family makes their mortgage payments, which mean many, many more families
It just
in the
keeps
future
growing and growing.
continue to get the opportunity.
So if I were to apply, you said that there is a massive need, and so you do have a lot of people who apply and qualify. And how many apply, and how many can you give out per year?
So last year we had triple the number of applications that we had the year before, which shows the tremendous need and the growing need, people who've never experienced this kind of challenge before. We don't like to give numbers because we don't want to discourage people from applying, but my point is that, you know, we don't have a waiting list, and so you would come, you would apply to Habitat, you would know whether or not you qualify. If it's from a financial reason that you do not qualify, then we have resources to help you, whether it's to work on your debt, to understand your savings, things like that better, to help prepare you to eventually become a Habitat homeowner.
Yes, and what I really like about your program too, it's a stepping stone. People reach for their phone, they call and contact you. Let's say they qualify, great. Let's say for whatever reason they're not chosen at this specific time, but am I correct? You have the facility to say, hey, listen, you don't need us. We can get you over here. You're going to get a house.
That's right.
So, you help them. The first step is for them to at least reach out and try.
I think the first step is to give so many families hope.
Yes.
And that in this time that we're facing, for so many families who faced really challenging housing instability, the ability to pick up the phone, to call Habitat, and if we're the solution, great. And if we're not, we do our best to try to find other options for families, at least to give them resources. Because it's a real challenge for our community.
So we only have like 1 minute left or 2 minutes left. Really quick, if I was a builder, if I was somebody who wanted, or just somebody who wanted to help,
yes,
how do I get in contact with you? And if I wanted to apply, how do I get in contact with you?
Both groups can certainly get a lot of information off of our website, which is www.habitatmetrodenver.org. So all of the qualifications for our families, as well as ways that sponsors and volunteers can really get engaged. This is such a tangible way for people to put their faith into action, to be a part of making a difference in their community. And we are blessed with very generous people who want to make a difference.
Right, you've got a huge name and a great big reputation, and it's because you are doing things right.
Well, we like to think so. And, I think it's because we've got so many people who understand that housing, it is a basic human need, and that to give people a good, solid foundation means that they have then the ability to go on and to grow into their full potential.
Actually, it is. It's your first basic need, is the shelter.
It is.
And it's actually, like I say, is our first temple.
It is,
you know,
in so
temple
many
of
ways.
worship. And so, you can go ahead and log on to
That's
Habitat
right.
Metro Denver.
Yes.
And get in contact with you and get the wheels
right.
rolling. And so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tina. I really appreciate your interest.
It's just such a great need. We have to have you back because this is just the tip of the iceberg.
I'd love to come back.
You know, that would be great. Yeah. So anyways, thank you. So everybody, if you know of a family in need, or if you're somebody who'd like to volunteer or be part of Habitat for Humanity here in Metro Denver, it's important for you to log on or to visit their website, and that's www.habitatmetrodenver.org.
That's right. O-R-G.
O-R-G. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope we have changed your life and gave you some more information. And until next time, my name is Tina Lombard, and you're watching Joy in Our Town.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to energy-saving bulbs. Saving energy saves you money.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina Lombard and you're watching Joy in Our Town. Today with us we have the president of Project 127, and that's Shelly Raddick. She's going to be talking to us about kids who actually age out of foster care at the age of 18. Where do they go? What do they do? And who cares for them? Shelley, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Tell us really quick about Project 127.
So Project 127 works to recruit foster and adoptive families for our kids who are in foster care.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I got interested in this because I was a foster mom, adopted 2 of my kids out of the foster care system, and just have enjoyed watching them grow up. And the thought that there are kids like my kids who never get adopted into a family, who move into adulthood at 18 without that protection and provision, and the dad to pick you up when you don't have a ride home from work, or the mom to help you figure out how to fill out a college application. It just breaks my heart to think of those kiddos.
All right, so now it's 2015, 348 here in the state of Colorado.
Just in Colorado, 348 kids age out of the foster care system without a permanent family.
Okay, so what happens to these kids? What do they do?
Well, the best case is they couch surf from friend to friend, or maybe they can find a family who'll take them in. But often that's our homeless population. That's our kids that get recruited into sex trafficking. That's our kids that get in trouble with the law because they're trying to feed themselves or house themselves or get involved in a gang, so they're incarcerated. Right.
Okay. Now, what's the problem? Is the problem that they were in foster care, or the problem was foster care wasn't a good match for them?
Well, usually the problem is that they were in foster care and they moved from family to family. It's difficult to find families that take teens, so they may be in a group home situation. There's a shortage of foster families in Colorado, and there's especially a shortage of foster and adoptive families for teenagers. People are afraid. They think they're like juvenile delinquents, and when actually they're kids whose family was in crisis and couldn't care for them anymore.
Right. Let's say that again.
So people assume that teens in foster care are juvenile delinquents, but the reality of they're kids whose families were in crisis and couldn't care for them anymore.
So it's also a function of their parents probably had something dysfunctional going on.
Right.
The parents were going through something traumatic, which caused the children to need the foster care.
Correct.
And so for us to look at the kids and think the kids were derelict or the kids had something wrong with them, that's completely wrong.
That's completely wrong.
Okay.
These are kids that are athletes and artists and kids who love to serve in their community. These are kids just like our kids.
They're all God's children.
Right.
They're all God's children. So something happened to their parents, and for whatever reason, something traumatic, life happens.
Right.
And the children are whisked away to what they deem a safe environment. And sometimes they get amazing foster families that they really click with, and sometimes there's that disconnect.
Right. They just didn't click, or possibly there wasn't a foster family for them, so they went to a group home.
So traumatically, emotionally, they're going, and spiritually, they're going in different directions. They're not founded. They're not grounded.
Well, here's one for an example. We have a girl who was recently adopted, so she didn't have to age out at age 16. She's 16, but she went into foster care at 10. Because of substance abuse issues. So this is an incredible girl. She's just, she's artistic and she's kind of quiet. First foster home didn't work out. It could have been that they couldn't take kids anymore. Could have been just they didn't get along well with her. She went to second. She went through 6 foster homes.
Good gracious.
So, and that happens to our kids. It's just they're going to push back sometimes in their foster homes.
Well, of course.
They don't fit. Yeah. Well, first of all, they're teenagers.
Well, yeah. Okay.
So there's that whole piece.
Yeah.
But they're teenagers that have experienced trauma, rejection. They can be very bright kids, but behind in school because they've missed.
Well, of course.
School.
I mean, I work, but when I come home, that's got to be my sanctuary. That's where everything evolves and unfolds, and I need to have that to be a safe environment. But to come home and people who are basically strangers for a while, that's going to impact my schooling, my work, and everything outside of the home. So to go through 6 homes like that, academically, you're going to be set back. Emotionally, you're going to be guarded, so you just can't develop in the capacity,
right.
you know,
That's
than if
right.
you didn't have these.
And you don't really ever feel safe anywhere, and you're always worried that you're going to be rejected again. So this is what happens to our kids. This is why this is such a huge problem, is that when a child doesn't have what God created for them, a family to keep them safe, to give them wisdom and guidance and love and care, they're really vulnerable to the evil things in our society. So one of the big things, this was such a shock to me, Tina, to learn that 40 to 70% of children who are involved in sex trafficking in the United States come out of our foster care system.
40 to 70%?
40 to 70%. See, they didn't have a family, so you just imagine, you know, this girl, maybe 15, 16, and a handsome young guy comes up to her at the park and says, "Hey, you look kind of sad," and she said, "Yeah, what's wrong? Oh, my family, they don't care for me. I'm in a foster home. It stinks." And he says, "Hey, I can be family to you. Come on back with me. We got a group of us that we get together," and lures her in, and then she finds herself in trafficking.
And she can't get out.
She can't get out. So she's so vulnerable. She so wants to belong to a family.
That overrides everything.
And because we, you know, as the church didn't step up to provide a real family to her, she falls prey to the false promises.
And then when they
belong.
turn 18, it doesn't
Right.
magically disappear.
It
just
doesn't.
exasperates
No.
because now you don't have, now you're 18, you're legally an adult.
Right, so only about 70% of our kids who leave foster care at 18, and there are some programs they can take advantage of, but usually these kids are really resistant by that point to programs.
Yes.
So only about 70% ever finish high school. Only 3% of kids from foster care will graduate from college. Only 3%. Here's another one. When they turn 25, the average wage of a child who aged out of foster care system is $25,000. So that's not even, they don't even really make enough. Even if they get a job and they move ahead, they never really make enough to support themselves.
There's not enough inertia or momentum in those crucial years.
And so then they turn to those negative things. You know, they might become homeless. They might become incarcerated. More than half of the young women will be pregnant by the age 21. And guess what happens with their kids? They can't.
It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. So then their kids go into foster care. And, you know, it's just a vicious cycle. And so we really, you know, this problem of kids aging out is really a huge one. It's got a huge cost to society, but bigger than that, it's a huge cost to these children.
Oh, absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about what Project 127 does, or what your beliefs, or just tell us a little bit about some of the help that is available.
So while many people focus on getting help for these kids after they age out, we really try to focus on finding them family before that happens. We truly believe that family is a gift that God gave to every child, and so we are looking for people to give the gift of family to teenagers.
It's actually the gift of life.
It is.
It's a gift of life.
Right.
Right now, you said there's a need. Tell us about the crucial need here in Colorado State.
So if you know that in 2015, 348 kids aged out without a family. So right now there's around 300 kids in our foster care system, most of them over the age of 10, so 10 to 18, who need to be adopted. Their parents' rights have been terminated. They are moving from foster home to foster home, or as they get older, into group homes without a family. What we really need is for families, Christians, to step up and say, you know what, we could make room for a teen in our family.
Okay.
So,
now, is it with the end conclusion of adopting, or with the end conclusion of just helping somebody out, or which one is
really
it?
and truly, for these kids, the best outcome would be for them to be adopted into a family.
Oh,
so like
that's
the girl
good to
I told
hear.
you know, at 16,
Yeah.
she actually went to stay with this family. They weren't going to adopt a teen. They were, like many of us, like, adopt a teen, that's weird.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of scary. But they thought, but we could keep her for the weekend because things weren't working out. And then they fell in love with her.
Oh,
You know, I think if we think of like this group of teenagers, it can be scary, but if you think of one 16-year-old girl or one 14-year-old boy, you know what I mean? If you think of a kid that loves the outdoors, or, you know, if you
they bring
get to
life to you.
know
Children
them,
bring life
right.
to you. They give you purpose, they give you dimension, they give you perspective, but they actually bring you life. You may be doing something for them, but they're actually doing a lot more for you.
Yeah.
And so people always classically think, I need to adopt a child at 2. But how about adopt a child at 13, in other words?
Well, and it's kind of cool if you're a little bit older too. It's
Yeah.
maybe like, ooh, if I adopted a child at 2 and I'm 42 now, I'm going to be in my 60s. But if they're 12,
Okay, that's true.
you know, sometimes people think it's weird, but really, and you know what? That's when they're physically living with you and you're really hands-on parenting. But you'll be their parents for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
They'll always have a place to come for Thanksgiving. They'll always have someone to call if their car breaks down. They'll have someone to say, you know, like my kids, I got to move into an apartment. How do you do that?
Yeah, exactly,
Or,
yeah.
I'd like to apply to go to college. How does that work?
Right.
And what is that FAFSA loan thing? You know, I mean, what 18-year-old knows how to apply for the FAFSA?
Right.
You know, that's
See?
just hard.
Well, now, so if I'm a family and I really want to take on this pledge, I really want to get into something like this, how do I get in contact with you? How does that work?
The best way to contact us is project127.com. That's our website, so project127.com. And there's information to come to an orientation and just learn more about how you can be involved.
So, Shelley, I have no experience. I just, it's a calling, but I have no experience.
Right.
Do I disqualify myself or what?
You know what, we'll provide all of the training that you
Okay.
need. So first you'd become a licensed foster parent, but you'd be licensed so a child would be placed for you. They'd live with you usually for 6 months as a foster child, make sure it all works, and then you would be able to adopt them.
Okay, so can I just take one child? Can I take 2 or 3 children? I mean, how does it work?
You know what, many just have one child, but there's sibling sets as well. So, you know, there might be a 16-year-old who has a 14-year-old sister and a 12-year-old sister.
I mean, can you possibly, if I wanted to keep a family together?
That's ideal. Is, you know, if you've already had to be separated from your parents, it's ideal if you could stay with your siblings. So in our state, we really work hard to try to keep siblings together.
That's a blessing.
It's huge.
So we only have like a minute or so left, but just really quickly, you're a Christian-based organization that supplements something that's in place.
Correct.
Correct. Right.
Correct.
So what is the benefit that that you bring to the table?
I think there's a couple things. One is all of that biblically based training. So as we're providing the required training, we're also helping you to grow as a Christian, grow in your faith, grow in your understanding of who God is, because we know it's a big thing to ask someone to bring in a teen or 3 teenagers. I might be
Yes.
calling you later about that, so just be careful. So we provide that. We also help you build a support system, and we'll also do our best to work with your church to make sure that they can support you as you're moving into parenting these kids that have had a hard past.
So you have a good network of Christian supporters. You have a good network of supporters right then and there.
It's really critical because, like I said, the kids are incredible, but it can be hard and bumpy at first. They're teenagers, but they're also teenagers that have experienced trauma, grief, loss, abuse, and so
if you really want to minister to somebody, this is a great way,
it's-
day in, day out, sun up to sundown.
You truly do change the outcome of a child's life forever.
Thus changing yourself. Yes.
That's right.
Shelley, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all your information.
You're welcome, Tina. It was great to be here.
And it was project127.com.
Correct.
Great. Well, anyways, if you know of anybody who may be in need of this ministry or you'd like to play a part of that, please do not hesitate to contact Project 127. And so until next time, my name is Tina Lombard, and you're watching Joy in Our Town.